Welcome to our committee.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay, very good. Good afternoon, Chairman Thomas and members of the committee. My name is Ethan Sperling, and I'm the Senior Director for Policy and Government Relations for Sparkwheel. Fortunate to be joined this afternoon by my colleague Casey Weimer, who is the Vice President of Program Operations. We're appreciative of the opportunity to present to the committee this afternoon and discuss the important work that is happening at Sparkwheel, the important work that we provide to the families, students, and the communities all across Kansas. Sparkwheel is proud to be the largest provider of integrated student support services in Kansas and the Midwest. We currently serve more than 41 Kansas schools, including early childhood centers, elementary, middle, high schools, and now on the campus of Pittsburgh State University. Across that spectrum, we serve 23,463 students, and that number continues to grow every year as we expand our services across the state. Currently, we serve communities from Pittsburgh to Dodge City, Garden City, from the Kansas City metro region to Marysville and El Dorado, so a good variety of different communities across the state. And we offer a dynamic, tailored-to-fit program that respects those local communities and adapts to the specific needs and the values of those communities. Sparkwheel helps empower teachers to focus more time on classroom instruction by delivering services and supports to students and families. Some examples of these services and supports can include financial literacy, education, personalized academic support, preparation for strong futures, helping provide essential needs such as food and clothing, and mentorship. That's not an exhaustive list, but just a few specific examples. And Sparkwheel's mission is to remove barriers and provide those we serve with the tools and resources they need to thrive now and into the future. Ultimately, our objective is to not only get the students to the graduation stage, but we help create well-rounded individuals who graduate, break cycles, integrate into their communities, give back to their communities, and are productive contributing members of our state. So this is sort of a quick high-level introduction to Sparkwheel. Casey has a PowerPoint that'll describe in a little more detail some more specific services that we provide, sort of the programming that we provide, how that programming is influenced, and she'll walk through that in the PowerPoint presentation. But before I turn it over to Casey, I really just want the committee to know that Sparkwheel is truly an above and beyond program operating in the schools, but our impact is much more, it's much broader than just in the schools. Like I said, we want students to get to the graduation stage, but the impact is on the fabric of the community in helping produce students who not only graduate, but integrate into their communities and give back to their communities. We also have what's called an Alumni Allies program, which follows students out of high school and helps continue to provide them with support, resume building, connecting them with businesses in their communities, just helping continue to support those students after they graduate high school. So just helping those students become productive in any way that we can. So that's just a very high-level introduction to who we are and what we do. And Casey's got some more information in a PowerPoint that she'll share. So again, appreciate the committee's time this afternoon.
Good, thank you. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you have the presentation able to pull that up. All right, so if you want to move to the next slide, that's kind of where I will start us off, just giving a little bit of information and background about Sparkwheel. If you have not heard of Sparkwheel, we are formerly Communities and Schools of Mid-America, so you may be familiar with us under that name. But Sparkwheel itself, just to give a little bit of background, first of all, the name Sparkwheel, if you're familiar with what a literal spark wheel is it's a tool that ignites a fire, or it's a tool that ignites a flame. And so, you know, our ultimate goal in supporting the students and the families that we serve is to be that fuel for the students, to ignite that flame, to ignite that desire for learning for the students that we work with. So, as Ethan stated, you know, our mission is to remove barriers and provide those we serve with the tools and resources that they need to thrive now and into the future. So for more than 25 years, we've partnered with schools, with students, with families to help remove obstacles that are standing in the way of their success. And we do this by following our integrated student supports framework. We have our own Sparkwheel integrated student supports model that is fully aligned with the national guidelines for integrated student supports. And that model allows us to customize services for every school and for every student that we carry on caseload as well. All right, so the next slide will just give a quick history of Sparkwheel. In 1995, we started as Communities and Schools of Kansas. In 2007, we gained new leadership, developed new standards in order to better support students across Kansas. And then in 2014, we expanded our reach to the surrounding states of Missouri, Oklahoma, and Iowa, and became Communities and Schools of Mid-America. And then last year in 2023, we were reborn as Sparkwheel in order to better reflect the passion that we bring to supporting students. So the next slide will, again, just give a little bit more background on our transition to Sparkwheel. So on July 1st in 2023, our strategic transition to become an independent organization occurred. And the reason behind that transition was really that no longer being part of a national organization gives us greater flexibility to be able to adapt the supports and services that we provide to each individual school, to each individual community, and to each individual student and family. So we're still doing similar work. We're still providing integrated student supports. We're simply doing that under our own integrated student supports model, which is the graphic that you see on the right there. All right, so the next couple of slides, this isn't going to be anything new to you all. You know, you're aware of what the barriers and some of the challenges and struggles we see in our schools. But if you look at these top 10 barriers here, what you're going to find is that many of them are related to poverty, right? And so what we know is that the role of education as a pathway to opportunity, that's very clear. And what's also clear is that poverty and the chaos that it often brings to a family's daily life can really impact a student's ability to engage and to succeed in school. So if you move to the next slide, you'll see this gives a couple of facts around trauma and around poverty, but we know that we're in an era of rising need in our schools. We're seeing more and more need from the students and the families within our schools. And so because of that, it's really essential that existing programs and services are being fully utilized. And we also know that resources and enrichment opportunities, they exist in our schools and they exist in our communities. The challenge is accessing them. And, you know, for families, it can often feel like a maze, trying to navigate all of the different resources within the community in order to be able to get the help that they need. And so that's where Sparkwheel can really come in and help and act as that connecting point, navigating that maze to really identify and target the right supports for our students and families. So the next slide is we're going to shift to talking a little bit more about what we do at Sparkwheel and how we help. So as we see more and more need in schools, we also see more things placed on teachers, right? Teachers are now expected to address those needs that are showing up in the classroom. And so where Sparkwheel really comes in and helps is by directly addressing the out-of-school challenges that are impeding learning and that are contributing to behavior problems in the classroom. And so by addressing those needs, we're allowing teachers to teach, right? They're able to be in that classroom and they're able to teach because the students aren't coming in hungry. They're not coming in with shoes that don't fit. They're not coming in with, you know, glasses that are broken or shattered. We're able to take care of those challenges so that the student can go into the classroom and be well regulated and ready to learn. So as what you're seeing on here, these are our 8 what we call support domains. So our student support coordinators provide supports both at the whole school level and at the individual case managed level across these different domains of support. And the first phase of our integrated student supports model is in conducting a comprehensive review. This happens at the school level and also at the case managed student level. And during that review, we determine what are the unique needs and strengths for each school and student we serve. So that means that every student we serve is not going to be receiving all of these different types of supports. If a student comes to us with a challenge with social skills. They're having a really difficult time making friends in school, and it's leading to maybe they're finding they're being bullied, they're struggling to connect with their peers. We don't need to be providing them with attendance interventions if that's not their challenge, right? We want to be providing them with some life skills supports to teach them how to develop those social skills to better engage and interact with their peers. And so, again, we provide a wide variety of supports based off of the unique needs of each individual student. Now, that said, every student does receive family engagement supports. We consider our work with students as a genuine collaboration with their caregivers, and so our student support coordinators are regularly checking in with caregivers, letting them know how we're supporting their student, seeing if there's anything happening at home that we might want to know about, so we can collaborate, and what's happening at home, we can mirror that at school. How we're supporting students at school, parents can mirror that at home as well. And then if you look at the next slide, this is just a quick snapshot. This is across our whole organization, our whole network, but here in a couple of slides, I'll look at just some Kansas data. But this is just a snapshot of who we serve, the general population of students we serve, and also the age ranges of students we serve. And as Ethan mentioned, we are serving from early childhood education centers all the way to colleges and universities. And our real model that we hope to emulate everywhere is within Pittsburgh, Kansas, where we are fully saturated. We have a student support coordinator in every education setting in Pittsburgh, from their early education family resource center to every single school building in the district, as well as at Pitt State University. So that's really exciting for us to be able to support those students across their full transition, their full educational transition. And then if we move to, actually we can go ahead and jump past the next two slides, and let's just go to the one that it says Kansas Impact. There we go. So this is looking at our data from last school year for our sites in Kansas. And so as you can see, we case managed over 2,000 students across the schools that we serve in Kansas. And considering encompassing our whole school supports as well, we reached over 23,000 students in Kansas. And also looking at the essential needs items provided, so that's things like food, clothing, hygiene supplies, school supplies. We distributed over 163,000 items to students and families in our Kansas schools. And then the graphics down at the bottom, that's looking at our students who are on our caseload. So just kind of highlighting the improve their academics. 86% of students who are on our caseload who had academics as a goal, as a focus area, showed improvement from when they came onto our caseload. And so, as you can see, the work that we're doing, it's showing an impact. It's showing an impact in their academics, in their attendance, in their behavior, and also in the promotion and the graduation rate. And one last fact that isn't on here, but that I think is pretty impressive, is that last year in Kansas alone, our staff provided over 60,000 hours of support to our case managed students. And then our last slide, just to close things up, I want to really highlight the line in blue here that says real change takes action. And I don't think that there's a better way to demonstrate this than to share an email that we recently received from a principal at one of the schools where we work. So this is a principal from a school from a community in Southeast Kansas, and her email says, "I went on a home visit this morning because I was furious. I had a 6th grader with 17 absences. No parent showed up for parent-teacher conferences. For weeks, we've tried to reach the parent by phone, and she wouldn't answer our calls or return a call. What I found was a single mother of 7 in crisis, and getting kids up and on the bus was the least of her worries. Very little food in the house, a vehicle without gas, a child at home with pink eye, and a toddler without diapers. A very sad but real situation. I left the house with the 6th grader, his high school brother, and a list of immediate needs. I called your student support coordinator, and she sprung into action. Believe it or not, by 4:30, she had every resource this family needed: an organization to fill the empty gas tank, food for the family, diapers for the baby, and most importantly, hope for a mother in crisis. My heart is so happy. Thank you and your phenomenal company for this unbelievable opportunity for our students and their community. And that student support coordinator actually continued supporting this family. She obtained thousands of dollars in donations. They tore out the carpet, they put in new carpet. She got the students new beds, new dressers, and all of that from a principal reaching out and saying, we have a student that needs help. And so I think that really emphasizes, the work that we're doing at Sparkwheel, that, we don't just care, but we act. We're moving forward and supporting students and families on their educational journey. All right. So if you have any questions, Ethan and I are happy to take any questions.
Well, I love that story, and thank you for being here. You guys are a great organization, you always have been. Committee, we got time for a couple of brief questions. I apologize, but Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony and for the work that you're doing for the students in Kansas and other states. I was just wanting to circle back on the post-secondary services that you offer, and I see on the website that Pittsburgh State is it the only institution? What work are you doing to expand this program at the others? Can you talk about any meetings or support that you need with the Kansas Board of Regents?
Yes, so we have we actually created a new position within the organization, a senior director of post-secondary, because this is a strong focus area for us, is developing and enhancing our work in post-secondary. So I know she has been meeting with several universities. Ethan, I know you've been connecting her with some organizations in the state as well. The big challenge is finding funding and finding the money to bring us into universities to provide those supports. And so there's a lot of interest. And so now we're really kind of trying to figure out where is that funding going to come from.
Yeah, but those conversations are ongoing. It's a new program, right? It's new to the last year, but we are interested in expanding. We've met with Heather Morgan, the independent colleges. I don't believe we've talked with the regents at this point, but it's new. We are interested in expanding, and we're starting to have those conversations.
Awesome. Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would piggyback on my colleague. The work you're doing sounds just phenomenal. I like the story that you just gave. I think there really is something to be said of following up on that story that, when students, parents, and we want parents to be involved, we ought to have somebody to do a health checkup on why parents didn't come to a parent-teachers conference. We find out that they had something else going, they weren't interested or whatever, but I think there's might be a story behind why parents don't show up to those parent-teachers conferences. And at the same time, I think a follow-up of why it's been mentioned in this committee before of the problems that some kids have with large amount of absenteeism. And when it gets to a certain level, it's almost lights out that they're not going to be doing well in school. And so some organization that would be able to follow up independently on those kids that have high absenteeism, that would be really, really great. So thank you for everything that you do.
You're here. All right, further questions, Representative Schmoy.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here. I have seen Sparkwheel in action in my district in some high need situations. And my question for you is, would you please relay to your boots on the ground what a phenomenal job they are doing, not only for students and families, but for the staff? Thank you.
Very good. Further questions, committee? Very good. Thank you guys so much for being here and what you do, and apologize for the short time, but I'm looking forward to more conversations with you. Committee, you're very welcome. Thank you. Committee, we're going to go ahead and move on. First, I want to welcome our newest member, Representative Steens, to the committee. Welcome, welcome. We are certainly glad to have you. Committee, we're going to jump right into House Bill 2839. I told the reviser I wouldn't do this, but since we have a new member, I'm going to ask Jason Long to give a brief rundown of House Bill 2839 for us, please. This was the bill we heard in our joint committee with the Senate. We had an informational hearing on it a week or two ago. So, Jason.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2839 is the House version of the Kansas Blueprint for Literacy that was briefly described in that joint meeting, I believe last week. The bill does several things. First off, it creates a literacy advisory committee with 15 voting members, as spelled out in the bill, and this committee monitors the progress of literacy training for teachers and literacy education of students, looks at best practices, looks at attainment of the goals that are stated under the bill for moving the teacher workforce to achieving micro-credentials in the science of reading and structured literacy by 2030, and moving fourth graders to achieving level 2 or above on the English Language Arts State Assessment by 2033, makes recommendations to the Director of Literacy Education and the State Board of Education, State Board of Regents on these topics, as well as recommendations to the Legislature on implementing the Blueprint for Literacy and any changes to the statute that may be necessary. There's also a plan that the advisory committee would submit to the Board of Regents for establishing centers of reading excellence, and that has to be submitted by January 1st of next year. The bill creates a Director of Literacy Education to be appointed by the Executive Director of State Board of Regents to essentially administer the program. There are provisions under the bill for Tier 1 literacy methodology and comprehensive assessment systems to be used and implemented by school districts by school year 25-26. There are provisions for micro-credentials and professional development for teachers on the science of reading and these methodologies. There are also provisions in here regarding the colleges and universities and their responsibilities in implementing the Blueprint for Literacy. And finally, there's a provision for establishing additional centers for excellence in reading under a plan that's submitted by the Literacy Advisory Committee. The bill would go into effect on publication in the Kansas Register, which would be before July 1st of this year. With respect to details, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully would defer to your conferees, as they are much more knowledgeable on this than I am at this point.
Sounds good. Thank you for that, Jason. We're going to jump right into our conferees. I'm going to welcome Dr. Cynthia Lane from the Kansas Board of Regents. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Real pleasure to be here to talk about the Kansas Blueprint on Literacy. Based on our time and on some of our prior conversations, I'm going to get right to the meat, share some amendments with you, and then spend the time answering questions, if that's all right with you, Mr. Chair. So the Blueprint on Literacy is not a new state program. It is clearly a pathway with practical steps that we can do to move literacy forward and to improve the workforce development we do for teachers. The reason that the Board of Regents is engaged in this work, it's important for our entire state. Our strategic plan requires that we do three things: help families, support business, and drive economic development. And literacy is one of the most important actions that we need to do in order to meet those three pillars of our plan, right? And our job is to do workforce and talent development. That's what post-secondary education is all about. So we began talking about the importance of working in partnership with the State Board of Education, our education partners, to help improve literacy outcomes for our students and to ensure every teacher in Kansas is trained in the science of reading structured literacy. The science is real clear now. We know what we must be doing. We need to ensure that we align our programs. So as the reviser mentioned, there are several I like to call approaches. You could think of them as actions that are outlined in in the bill, in the blueprint. The first is the establishment of that Literacy Advisory Committee. That starts for you on the bill in Section 2, beginning on page 2, line 15, and outlines quite an extensive list of the responsibilities of this advisory committee and who will be on that committee. It does include representatives from the independent college. While we certainly don't govern them, we want to invite them in to be part of this work. It also includes a representative from the KNEA. They're vital to the success. So the committee, and then an appointment of a literacy director that would be hired by the Board of Regents to work at this post-secondary level to guide our literacy instruction. This bill is all about what you want to require the Board of Regents to do in partnership with the state board. So the first thing, establish the committee, hire the director. The second thing is the establishment of what we call 2 transformational goals. Those are in Section 2 on page 3, lines 34 through 38 of your bill. The first goal is to train 100% of our Kansas elementary teachers to achieve a micro-credential in the science of reading, structured literacy by 2030. The second goal, and this goal I'm going to offer you an amendment to modify it based on our conversations of 2 weeks ago. But the second goal is to have 85% of our 4th grade students achieve at a level 2 or above on the Kansas English Language Arts Assessment. I'll swing back to that in a minute with an amendment that we talked to Senate Ed about that we'd like for you to consider. So a committee, a director, 2 transformational goals. The third thing is to require post-secondary literacy education, the training we do of our pre-service teachers, to be based on the science of reading, structured literacy, to ensure that when a person graduates from one of our universities, that they walk out the door with a strong foundation and they can walk into any classroom in our state and have confidence in delivering quality literacy instruction. The fourth thing is to require that we work in collaboration with the state board. Now, we are in strong partnership with them, but we believe it sent a powerful statement to have it say that the regents and the state board will collaborate on a system of literacy assessments. These are not the statewide assessments. These are assessments that teachers use in the classroom every day to identify a student's needs, to create a plan with the family, and then to do follow-up assessment. Is the student growing? What are we going to do about it? And then the final thing are those centers of excellence in reading. The advisory committee will be charged to identify the location of those. We'd like to see them regionally distributed across the state. Those centers do about 4 different things. They support families. They can do assessment and diagnosis of reading needs. They support teachers by doing instructional coaching, going out to schools, supporting in that way. They would support administrators and school board members so they understand what's important to know as a governing policy body around literacy. And the last thing that they will do is provide what we call a simulation lab, so that people who are emerging in their skills as an instructor in literacy have a high-quality, safe place to demonstrate and get coaching around the teaching of literacy. So those 5 things: a committee, a director, a clear focus on goals, ensuring quality assessments are being taught in our pre-service classrooms so that teachers have tools to take with them into their classroom, and the centers of excellence on reading. So now if we could get to the amendments, I think that would be helpful. You'll find them on the last page of my written testimony. And then you should have a handout that lists the 4. There are 4 I want to talk to you about. So the first amendment would go in Section 1 of the bill, and it adds that all the provisions in Section 1 through 7 of this bill are subject to legislative appropriations. So the first thing is that additional funding in order to support this work. The second amendment has to do with that transformational goal. The 85% of 4th graders. You'll see on the second page of my testimony that in working with the state board that we already have 81% of our fourth graders reading at level 2 or above. It's outstanding work. So we want to present to you a modification to have 85% of our 3rd through 8th graders reading at least at level 2, grade level, on the state assessment by the year 2033. And we recommend that you add that 50% of our students will be reading at levels 3 and 4, approaching college ready and college ready. So there are 2 parts to the goal now. 85% at least at a level 2, grades 3 through 8, and 50% of those students reading at a 3 and 4. The third amendment is on section 4, page 5. There's a lot of confusion in the original language of the bill. It spoke to the Board of Regents directing school districts. That's not our job. That's our state board partner's job. So we are recommending that in that section, it says actions taken by our universities to amend that to say, strike by each school district and replace it with in teacher preparation programs. This section is talking about those literacy assessments that we want to use to train our teachers on how to assess reading and how to develop plans. So strike that it would be used by each school district. That's the state board. They'll make that determination. This says that in our teacher preparation programs, they will train on the use of those quality assessments. All right? Last amendment. In the original testimony on section 4, line 6, page 6, it says each school district shall, strike that and replace it with each state and municipal university shall ensure that a comprehensive literacy assessment in the teacher preparation programs. So the assessment section, I think, of the original bill had confusing language where it says school district shall, remove that and substitute the language for all universities. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be willing to answer any questions.
All right, we're going to breeze through the conferees and then have questions. Committee, what may end up happening is on Thursday, it says meeting on the call of the chair. We may end up holding sort of a second day of hearings on Thursday where I might ask the conferees to come back and ask more questions then just to get through all of this. But right now, I want to get through the testimony. So with that, I'll welcome Mike O'Neill, Kansas Policy Institute. Welcome to our committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kansas Policy Institute is here as a proponent of House Bill 2839 as we were on the Senate side. My testimony, however, does point out some things that are of some concern. Our main emphasis is, and it continues to be, on the actual Johnnies and Susies that are in the classroom right now. We talk a lot about planning and how long it's going to take to do this and how long it's going to take to do that, and this new program and that new program. Just keep in mind, every second that we talk about that, there's a student in a classroom right now expecting to get the best educational program that the state has to offer them, and that we owe that to them. So we don't want to forget the kids that are in the classrooms right now that are matriculating through the system. And we do have sort of a red lights and sirens situation going on. My testimony does point out where this all started in Mississippi in 2013 and the states that have come on board since. I would respectfully suggest that we're a little behind and we need to catch up very, very quickly. The other concern that we have is any notion that a level 2 reading level is satisfactory. It is not. We have heard there's debate going on about there's some kids in level 2 that go on to get some post-secondary success or get a certificate or what have you. That should not be the ultimate goal for these kids. I'm sure they have aspirations that exceed what a top half of level 2 is. So we should not be complacent and think that level 2 is sufficient. We want to get to levels 3 and 4. And in that regard, we do appreciate Dr. Lane's suggestion that we look at grades 3 through 8. The grade 4 reading in Kansas is a bit of an anomaly because it does not align with proficient on NAEP, while our other tests fourth grade math, eighth grade math, eighth grade reading does align with the proficiency level for NAEP. And so you can have a situation, as Dr. Lane has indicated, where if you look at the state assessments for fourth grade reading in Kansas, it appears that 81% of students achieve level 2 or higher. But we know that because of the alignment with NAEP, that is only at basic. So that picture is skewed. So when you look at one grade level away from the state fourth grade ELA assessment, you'll see that only 68% of third graders score at level 2 or higher, and the same percentage, 68% of fifth graders. So you go from 68 to 81 to 68. So that fourth grade is an anomaly. So we fully support looking at grades 3 through 8 at a minimum. And I would suggest that our target really ought to be getting as many of these students as possible to 3 and 4. We know that 95%, that there's a wealth of knowledge that says 95% of children should be able to read proficiently. We've got that 5% because of intellectual disabilities that may not be able to do that. But the research is pretty clear that 95%, and we should aspire to that if we're going to have the highest aspirations for our kids in Kansas. I've got some other things in there, but in the interest of time, I'll be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Next, I'll welcome Shannon Kimball with the Kansas Association of School Boards. Welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Thomas and members of the committee. I'm Shannon Kimball with the Kansas Association of School Boards, and I'm here today to share with you our support for House Bill 2839 and to share a couple of suggestions for improvement in the overall plan. We support the bill's focus on the work of the Board of Regents and our state post-secondary teacher training programs to ensure that our pre-service teachers are trained in the science of reading and prepared to implement those high-quality practices in their classrooms as soon as they begin teaching. We really appreciate the collaborative approach to this work that has brought the blueprint forward, and we believe it will ultimately benefit our students. We also appreciate that in the bill, there is flexibility in terms of the appointments to the Literacy Advisory Committee, particularly in allowing legislative appointments to include literacy experts. This expertise around the table will be key to creating a sustainable long-term strategy to achieve the goals of the blueprint. And we think that this approach, inviting experts to the table who can address the subject matter, is the right approach to address these complex educational best practice and student needs issues. We would respectfully request that you consider adding a school board member to that body as the group of people constitutionally charged with the governance and oversight of implementing this plan at the local level. We think that the collective voices of the approximately 2,000 locally elected school board members should also be at the table for this critical work. And finally, in our written testimony, we highlight several opportunities that we see to improve the bill, particularly around the areas that Dr. Lane highlighted with regard to the discussion in the bill of the assessment, the comprehensive assessment system. We think that the original language in the bill is unclear. It makes it sound like you're creating something from scratch. We support clarifying that language along the lines that Dr. Lane has suggested, as well as some additional amendments that were made in the Senate committee when they worked the companion bill to this bill. Because we think that those amendments further clarify that the bill is not intended to intrude upon the authority of the state board or local boards in the area of classroom, formative, summative, and screening assessments. Thank you for the opportunity to share our support for this bill today, and with that, I would be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Next, I will welcome from the State Board, Ann Ma and/or Dina Horst. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing us to provide testimony today in support of House Bill 2839. The State Board believes that the Blueprint for Literacy is a good continuation of our Kansas Education Framework for Literacy that we began in 2019, and a copy of that is attached to my testimony. If you haven't seen it, lays out everything we've done. We approve the recommendations of the Dyslexia Task Force and have begun implementation on all of the items related to our authority and responsibility. I outlined some of the efforts we championed in my testimony. These include changes to our ELA standards, changes to our teacher preparation standards. We invested $15 million in letters training, And in 2020, the state board was asked to delay implementation of our timeline, but we did not, even in the middle of a pandemic. We knew that delaying the implementation of structured literacy even 1 year was not acceptable. We created our own Literacy Advisory Council and the Dyslexia Handbook. We hired a program manager for early literacy and dyslexia. And we moved structured literacy to the top of our priorities because we know it impacts so many other areas of learning. House Bill 2839 focuses on improving teacher preparation, and the state board is in total support of that. It was also one of the 2019 Dyslexia Task Force recommendations. We also believe the regional centers could be of help to districts seeking that support. Our concern are in 3 areas. First, there are places where it is not clear whether the language refers to the State Board of Education or the State Board of Regents. For example, 2 places refer to the State Board of Education, and it means just State Board, and needs to be clarified State Board of Regents, and I have amendments for that. We're also concerned about sections of the bill which have already been discussed, which overstate the State Board's authority. We already have made recommendations to districts on screening tools, and we authorize all K-12 assessments. We have formative, interim, and summative assessments already available in ELA. As mentioned, the Board of Regents has no authority in this area, and we ask that these sections be removed, and I don't think all those were mentioned, so I also have amendments for that, where it says that they will make their assessments available to schools. The last thing we need is for schools to receive 2 different sets of assessments and wonder what they're supposed to do with that. Also, there's a place that says the Literacy Committee will monitor K-12 assessment programs and report to the legislature. We think that should be done by the Board of Education. On the goals, there's a goal in there for what % of kids will be at what level by what time. Frankly, I think you should keep in mind that is a Board of Regents goal, not a State Board of Education goal, and they can set that wherever they want. We work every day on the kids who are in the classrooms today to focus on getting students from level 1 to level 2 and above in every area of study. And what we know is there are dozens of factors impacting our success, so we already have dozens of goals and strategies to achieve them. We know that students in level 1 have a lot of things going on: chronic absenteeism, high poverty rates, lack of kindergarten readiness, mobility issues. It's a really long list. What is proposed in this bill will be just one of many factors that impact whether or not you reach those goals. And I think our numbers guy can probably address whether or not all the dots connect from here to there. We will support the Board of Regents and their goal in any way we can. So we do support the blueprint. It fits with our framework very well. And I will get to you the additional amendments for your consideration. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I will now turn, we have written testimony from Tim Graham at the KNEA and from my friend, Dr. Brent Yeager of the Olathe Public Schools, Superintendent. With that, I will turn to Matt Lindsay from the Kansas Independent College Association. He will be providing neutral testimony. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Matt Lindsay, Kansas Independent College Association. I come before you as a neutral conferee. I represent the 21 not-for-profit colleges in the state of Kansas. Of those 21, 17 have teacher ed programs. We are and have historically been pretty heavily invested in the education of new teachers, and 20% of all the new teachers in the state of Kansas every year come out of private colleges in the state. So we're pretty proud of the role we play. So we're grateful that the task force envisioned includes a representative from the independent college sector. We think the motives and objectives of the bill are aimed well. We need to do better at literacy education. Our concerns with this bill, however, and that keep us from being a strong proponent, which are listed in my testimony, primarily focus on several sections that create a new authority for the Board of Regents to oversee the curriculum at independent colleges. I have suggested amendments in my testimony at several places. We need to make changes because I don't even think it's intentional, but the thing that is set up is for the first time, the Board of Regents would have a say-so over certain aspects of how classes are taught and what is taught at private colleges. I don't think we want to do that. I think that is a thing the regents don't actually want to do either, so we would definitely prefer to see that changed. With that, I will leave the rest of my written testimony for your consideration and answer questions at the appropriate time.
Very good. Committee, here's what I would like to do in conferees, if you'll pay attention. I would like to invite, Thursday, we don't have a meeting scheduled, it says meeting on call of the chair. I would like to come back Thursday and just spend the entire committee time answering questions and then consider taking action on this bill. And because that's pretty much the last day we're going to meet. So if the committee's good with that, I would like to save the questions, bring folks back that can make it, ask them Thursday, and then we can consider taking action on the bill, have amendments ready and all of that on Thursday. So due to time, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn us.